Okay, there we go. I think my microphone's working. Anyone in channel, tell me if the mic isn't working if you are in chat. There we go. And that will appear, you see, on the screen, which is cool. So hello everybody. Hello everyone. Now I'm not sure if I can post links in my own Discord, but let's see if I can. So here we are. Excellent. Thank you very much, Captain Big Butts. The link for our Discord is bump. Thanks, Captain. Very appropriate nickname there, you see, Captain Big Butt. Okay, so hello everyone. My name's Chris, as you're probably aware. I am the developer on the Wiki. So this gives me a chance to talk to you and let you know how development on the Wiki is going. Firstly, development's going really well. A lot of people, say to me, this takes, why is it taking so long to develop a game? Well, video game development takes a very, very long time. What you have to remember is that there's levels of kind of complexity to this that people don't tend to think about. So not only have I got to create, the storyline, but I've got to create the world, and then I've got to create everything else. So, oh, there's somebody posting spam on my thing. Let's just block them forever, because we don't want spam off them. There we go. So, little button here, and blocked. There we go, so he doesn't end up being an arse. Right, sorry, so what was I saying? Yeah, so when you're creating a video game, what you've got to do is you've got to obviously create the plot, unless you're just creating a wave shooter, and even then there needs to be a reason normally for why things are coming, and then you've got to create the world, and you've got to create everything inside the world, and then you've got to create like the interaction between everything inside that world. Now that's the long part, okay, that's really the long part. Alan hasn't found his earphones. There we go, get your ear trumpet, Alan. Right, so just quickly check my messages. You've got to remember, with this being live, I'm getting messages all the time. Now, back to this. So if I go over here to day one, okay, you'll notice I've got like 4 days here, and I've got something called CADAF, which don't pay any attention to that, you can't see the word CADAF, and then I've got some other stuff. So if I'll just load up day one, so day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 are streaming base levels that are actually accessing a ton of additional streaming levels that come into this. Now I want to talk a little bit about influences for the Wiki as well while I'm doing this. Okay, so while I was developing the game, I'm also a big fan of other video games such as Satisfactory, which is a very fun game. I'm also fond of Subnautica. I really like games like Elite Dangerous, and I like a decent horror if we can find one. Now this is the thing, there aren't very many decent horror games out there. There's a lot of horror games like The Sinking City, and Frogware tried really hard with The Sinking City, but I think the problem with the game is that there's a lot of kind of, oh look, there's a monster, oh look, there's another monster, there's a monster over there, it's very hard to get that kind of balance. Now what I'm doing is I'm trying to balance it in, so I want you to go, I think that's something over there, but I'm not sure. Is that thing over there dangerous? I don't know, etc. I mean, if I come all the way over here, I want to be very careful how I do this. Yeah, I'm not going to look over there. If I come all the way over here and kind of turn off my environments, so I'll turn off environmental level 1 and go with something like environmental level 2 where we can't see quite so well, and then come up here. The whole idea is that we should be able to just see inferences of things, just see things kind of from the edge, as it were, you know, because I don't want people seeing too many details. I want people seeing outlines. So when it's night time and, you know, you're cresting around up here, you know, and looking over the edge and seeing things, I don't want you being able to see too much. I want you to think, is that something? And of course the danger involved in wandering around at night on this island is massive. You can fall off the edge and really quite badly hurt yourself. So, and by hurt yourself I mean you're going to literally knock yourself out for the rest of the day. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I haven't got a layer in there to hide for that one, which is a shame, so bear with. I think it's on persistent. Yeah, it was on persistent level. You see, everything in the game is kept inside of the persistent level, and then everything else is streamed in, and that makes my job so much easier. Okay, so let's talk about the actual game itself. Well, as I was mentioning, level 1's kind of level 1, day 1, that's all put to bed now, and the good thing about that is that we're able to obviously go through the game now and play it, interact with characters, and do all the things that, you know, we want to do. Now, day 2 is being assembled at the moment. The good thing is that because the framework now is done, assembling the additional days based on the plot doesn't take very long at all. So with day 2, I've just got to wait for the voice actor to send me the lines. I've got to put the NPCs in the right place, and I've got to make sure the puzzles are in the right place, and then I can just send you off and you'll do day 2. Day 3 is the same, day 4 is the same. So even though, you know, the various game levels are kind of interlocking with each other, if you do such and such, then the next day something will be available to you. At the same time, doing this now isn't particularly hard for me because so much has gone by. However, there are parts of it that are going to take time. Now, some people have probably wondered, well, if the game's coming out and it's going to be, you know, more or less complete on release for me to play, why is there going to be, you know, 12 months of additional content probably releasing fortnightly? The answer to that is that if we look at things in the game, like for example this hallway here, okay, now this hallway doesn't have any bearing on the plot. Very little that happens regarding the plot takes place in this hallway, but it's an important part of the building. But at the minute I'm under no urgency to furnish this in any way particularly that I'd need to, because there's no point at the moment. By the time I get through and I've got day 7 written and under, well, not written, I'm compiled and under into the game, then I might have decided that I need to move something into here. But for the minute, you know, going and getting a load of furniture and fully furnishing this room out, one, it's going to take some time because you'd be surprised how long it takes to make a credibly furnished room, and also two, I might decide that I need changes. So this is one of the kind of updates that you're going to be seeing. Is, you know, you'll come in here eventually as an update's happened and it'll be like, oh, that's weird, there's something here. Oh, that's strange, there's something there. Does it have any impact on the game? And the good thing is, some things will, some things won't. Now, for example, a very good example of this is if we look at books. Now, at the moment, we can wander up and we can like grab a book and we can look at a book and stuff, and you know, the most we can do really is just stand close to the book. So if I click play from here, hope I don't kick off any trigger sequences, just a second. There we go. So if I go over here, the most I can do is kind of look closer at the book, and I can't actually read them or anything, I can just look at them. However, I do actually have the capability for you to come in and start reading your books, and we can add these books to your own personal library, and the content for them will become more important as we go along. But the process of making these books takes time. Another thing we've got here is this, which is our radio. Now our radio, again, this features very, very heavily inside of the game. You know, one of the main puzzles you'll come back to again and again and again is our radio system. But that's going to take, even though it's working, it's going to take time to put all the different clues in for the different days, because I don't need them until we come to those specific days. So this is why you're going to see things kind of assembled, you know, you're going to see things all around the house, but you're also going to see areas that are kind of emptier. Now there are some things as well that kind of have some relevance, but they won't have any relevance really to you. So for example, if I look at these pictures here, so this is my painting system that I use. And this is painting 28, painting 6, painting 19, and painting 99. Now, you'll probably never find out that that's what these paintings are called. So I'll give you a clue. This sequence of paintings here is a nice reference to my 4th child, my 2nd youngest, because that's his birthday. So, you know, 28th of the 6th, 1999. So there are little things in here that you'll see that you'll be like, I don't know why that's there, but it makes sense to me. And there's things in there that you're going to look at and you're going to go, and maybe it makes sense to something else, because, you know, being a game developer, Easter eggs are cool. However, the important thing to remember is, as we go forward, okay, especially if you're interested in playing this game, there are areas that are going to be furnished and there are areas that are going to be unfurnished because they don't need to be furnished yet. And places like this that are going to be furnished more and more as time goes on. Okay, because this is a great place to put little trinkets as your 2 weeks goes on. You know, what better a place than here to put trinkets? And then down here in the kitchen, you know, here's a great place to eat your meal, look at the stuff that's going on in here, you know, talk to Malin. Through here's the kitchen, and at the minute the kitchen doesn't need to be furnished, so it's locked. Same through here. In here there's a study room, okay, this is a room that Malin uses, doesn't need to be unlocked at the minute. And then as we go all the way down here, eventually you'll be allowed out of this door, and this leads to the older lighthouse, and the lighthouse is slightly older than the main building. Used to have its own lighthouse keeper's house that was, you know, specific for it, but it doesn't anymore. And you can see we've got these big pipes leading into it, and then underneath it we've got this. Again, we're talking about laying detail on detail. This doesn't need to be open yet. When it is open, you know, there's things happening inside it. Some of my favourite things in the game actually are going to be, you know, behind those doors or behind the doors down there, or there's going to be another set in the village. Now, some other things, you'll have noticed that the pool of water now has appeared outside the lighthouse at the top. I did want to get this back, so that was an important thing. We have the diaphone hut over here. This starts to get used finally in the 2nd day, okay, when you're starting to look for some items that are needed. Now, if we continue down here, excellent. I've got persistent level hidden at the minute, so I'll turn that back on. There we are. If I come down towards the village finally is going to make its appearance in day 2. It's mentioned in day 1, but it'll finally appear in day 2. I'll just turn that on so we can see it. There we go. Now you'll be able to explore the village, although, you know, at first you won't find too much there, because you're going to be heading down to this, which is the site of the old pump and sluice and stuff, okay, which is where you need to go to unflood some tunnels so that you can be able to bring things up from the quay more quickly. And this all ties in, okay, this is all part of the ongoing story. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to come back over to the quay and do your stuff. Now the thing is, getting to this village is kind of dangerous. Okay, there isn't actually, you know, an easy peasy connection between the two. There's a very uneasy peasy connection between the two, and there's going to be an additional puzzle there to make it a little bit easier for you if you want. And because this is the wiki, you don't even have to do that if you don't want to. You know, it's entirely up to you what you want to do. If you don't want to do the job, or you want to half-arse it and only do half the job, you can do that. That's the whole point of this game. But if you do, the thing that you need to do in that pump house is so important to the plot that it's actually going to make your game considerably more difficult, and actually remove an awful lot of the plot from the game that you would otherwise have access to, because that's the point of this. You know, it's like, well, do I bother to do the work? If you do, you have access to things that are going to save you time, combined with, you know, things that are going to really add a lot more detail to this. Now if we look over here, okay, this is kind of important too, so I need to just turn lit off. Now over here we have the block. I think this is a block, is it? Yeah, the block, and we have some other bits that you probably can't see too well at the minute. Now bear in mind I've got lighting turned off. Now you can't get over here, you're not supposed to. You can probably find a way to sneak over here if you really want to, but if you do, you'll be kind of disappointed for the time being, because this is all fairly low detail, simply because there's no point bringing in the high detail block or any of the high detail assets until they're needed, which is around about between day 4 and day 7. So at the minute there's no point me focusing my time on that. However, when we do, and you're wondering, well, what's going to happen to this fence? Well, you'll see. It's all very exciting, I promise you. Okay. Some other things to pay attention to are Connor's Rock, which is way over there. See that? Just appearing and disappearing in the distance. That will have some bearing on what we're doing, so we'll keep an eye on that. You know, keep an eye on that. But it'll all kind of come together. Right, so I've talked about a bit, probably talked about a little bit too much in places. That's one of the, you know, sad things about not having a line manager cracking their whip. Although Amanda does keep telling me not to spoil things, and I try my hardest not to. Now, I've passed on the new script to the voice actor for day 2, because I do it one day at a time, because this costs me money. Like, you know, always pay for your art. Voice acting or whatever, always pay for your art. However, I'll get the work off him soon. Regarding Captain Malin, I need a few more pieces of art for that too. So I'm going to get that commissioned up, and hopefully that'll only take a week or so. Now, the idea is that I'm going to have day 2 complete and ready, I would say, in about 2 weeks. And if that's the case, brilliant, because rather than moving on to day 3, I need to focus for a while on the demo. Now, here's the good bit. If you're following the game, and I know a few of you are, and you want to get in on early access for the demo to help me test it, I will be looking for people to test the demo. This will be about a month from now, okay? I will be asking people who test it, obviously, to treat it in confidence. I'll be looking for feedback and ways I can improve it. The demo's important because I am doing the Steam Indie Showcase, and because of that, or whatever the flip they call it, and so because of that, it's important that I have like as good a demo as I can possibly get away with, as you can imagine. So if you're interested in that, if you're in Discord, drop me a message. If you're not in Discord, you know, drop me a shout on Facebook or wherever the hell you hear this, and I'll add you to the list. There's a few people that want to do this already. I'm not looking at probably more than 20 people to test the demo, and for the testers, I would ask kindly if you would give me a rundown of the hardware you're using, because, you know, that's kind of important. Okay, so that's been 20 minutes of me talking. I very much doubt anyone's going to want to ask a question, because no one ever does, but if you want to ask a question, please do, okay? You know, they are useful. We all benefit from questions. Let's see, is that it? Oh yeah, and hello to my old friend Cleany. I will try my hardest to put the SK2000 into the game if I can. Right. Oh, and many regards to my good chum Dave Whidden, who worked on one of my favourite video games, L.A. Noire. Fantastic video game that is. And of course to my friend Sasha Hendricks, who worked on Gothic 3, I just discovered. Didn't know you worked on Gothic 3, Sasha, so well done to you. Anyway, you take it very easy. Oh, hang on. Captain Big Butt, how long has this been in development? Says Captain Big Butt. Good question. Okay, so the actual development of the wiki as a game, well, I think it started in a year last October. What had happened was, I'm a member of a local art group that just meets in the local village, and they're all great at watercolours, or they're all great at whatever they do, and I'm like, I like lines and polygons. So I'd taken some paper up there, and I'd been working on a rowing boat. So what I did was I had my rowing boat, and I'd been working, you know, in 3ds Max, not at the art group, just to get this rowing boat working, because I'd seen the film The Lighthouse Keeper, and I really loved the slow kind of boat section where they're rowing across to the island, and I wondered if I could recreate it in Unreal Engine. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to be a lighthouse keeper? So that was around about October 2019, and so I drew at the art group, I kind of drew out what I thought would be really cool to use as a design for the lighthouse, and that was the original design, where it had kind of this platform underneath, and then it had like the lighthouse at one end and this big lighthouse building. And originally the idea was it'd be floating on a rock that was about as big as this one is, that you can see just through the mist, okay, so the rest of this would have been water. And I kind of liked the idea, but then I couldn't really see much of a future for it, and then my wife and I were talking about it, and she came up with this amazing idea that I loved about the lighthouse keepers, where you're not the main lighthouse keeper, you're just, you know, an assistant lighthouse keeper who's coming out here for 2 weeks. And we started thrashing out the storyline based on that. I mean, Amanda's been absolutely incredible in helping me thrash out the story, because I wouldn't have came up with the main plot line the way I did without it, and I think it carries the story so damn well. So I did about a solid 12 months on that, just making assets. Any assets I couldn't make, I purchased. But I mean, a lot of them I was able to make. Now, for example though, this here is the Seaside pack, believe it or not, from Epic Games, that they just gave away free one day. And I was like, God, that's beautiful. And then I think it even came with these pipes. Now these big rocks over here, some rocks I had from ages and ages ago. This is terrain. This stuff over here was all built by me, specific to what I needed, as was the observatory and the diaphones and the engine huts and stuff. I mean, it's this building. The reason I grabbed it from Epic is because it stands out and looks completely different as well, which I liked. I wanted something to stand out and look different. Now the key down there is a mixture of various different, whoops, sugar lumps, a mixture of various different things. So I'm totally in the wrong place here. Where am I? I'm at the block bothy. So if I come down to the key, for example, most of the pieces there are either custom made or I just pulled from some other assets that I had knocking around. And then if I go into things like the block, well, obviously this kind of temporary model here was made by me. The hidden parts are kind of parts of it made by me, parts of it are assets that I purchased. It just depends. And then we've got the little bothies down in the village. So if I go to my village, and I built all of those. So select actors, F, there we go. And you can see this is all the stuff that makes up the village over here. And these are actually procedural houses that I was coming up with, because I wanted a lot of houses. And so I can now select and build my houses really, really quickly. Over here's a little graveyard that's made from a number of different assets, including some Megascan stuff. I mean, this is literally kind of like an advert for solo game developers on how to build stuff on a budget. Now, don't get me wrong, hardly any of this was free. Okay, for example, the assets that I needed to buy, I bought. So, I'm trying to think of a good example of that. And that would be, well, even relatively simple stuff, you know, that I needed at the time. So dials and gauges, rather than spending 3 hours making a dial and gauge that reacted, it's so much easier spending $15 and just buying one, you know. Just simple things like that. It used to be that I bought a lot of blueprints, but I don't buy blueprints anymore. There just doesn't seem to be much point in it, because I can make most of the blueprints I want. Although the framework for a lot of the blueprints I use is, originally it was like from an FPS game system, and then I bought a load of code and started adapting it from the HE pack, which is really, really useful. So I don't see that as... It's important to note as well, this isn't asset flipping. If you're thinking of Jim Sterling when he goes on about asset flipping, I was really paranoid. I was like, oh god, I hope I'm not just building a game where you asset flip. There's a big difference between asset flipping and actually using assets as an independent game developer that you need. You know, you should use them sparingly. You should make it look like it isn't someone else's game for certain, and you should only use them if you absolutely need to. Now, another question people have asked me, actually, Captain Big Butt, good name, is about the water. Now, this water here used to be, but isn't anymore, the water that Unreal Engine uses for Fortnite. Now, I can still use that, and I've given it some consideration. However, this water here, if you notice, has like foam and stuff on it, and all sorts of other things, and is, to be honest, a much better water solution than the one I was using from Epic for the moment. When Epic's gets better, I might use Epic's one, but for the moment, no. So, to answer the question you did ask, development has been October, November, December, plus 12, that's 15, plus 4, 19 months. 20, 21, 22. The game will release when it's been in development for about 22 to 24 months, and it'll be final at about 36 months. So that's a 3-year development for an indie game, which seems about right. I've worked on most of this part-time in my own hours. By part-time I mean like, oh, I've got some free time, let's work till 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's just, you know, finding the time to do it. Someone asked me about the round things, even though it only says 3 viewers on blooming stream, there's people asking me questions from all over. Someone asked me about these balls. These aren't bollards or ballast on the side of this ship. What these are is these are the things that actually note the buoyancy. So if I was to simulate now, what happened is this will drop into the water and these will align with the actual water mesh underneath. Now it doesn't quite work the way I want it to, because I'm also then using FFD and displacement, which makes these much bigger, much nicer waves. So I'm giving that a little bit of thought at the minute, but I don't need to actually ride in the boat at the moment, so I can make do with the kind of simulation I'm getting, which is this. Okay, so just in case you were wondering. So the reason these are above the water and these ones are below is because the FFD is actually averaging up and down in waves to do this displace. So the boat is slowly moving on the surface, but it's not moving quite in time with the biggest waves. Okay? Just so you know. Okay, so that was an extra 10 minutes of me talking. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for the questions, especially the lovely Captain Big Butt, who has the world's greatest name. And I will hopefully talk to you all again soon. Very, very soon, if not sooner than soon. Meanwhile, you take care, and YARRRR.